In this session, we are going to demonstrate how to set up and use ReasonCodes within Genesis Workspace. We will also be using Genesis Administrator to configure objects and options in different ways to support multiple scenarios. When a customer first uses Workspace, there are usually no specific ReasonCodes defined within Genesis Administrator, and the Workspace user will see default options within their status menu, as shown here. If we want to add specific not ready ReasonCodes to the status menu, we must first configure these codes within Genesis Administrator. Once we have ReasonCodes defined, they will be available to any user logging into a Workspace application. Codes defined after users have logged into Workspace will require users to log out and back into Workspace to obtain access to these objects. We will talk more about what is dynamic and what is not as we review different scenarios. So in order for Workspace to use specific not ready ReasonCodes, we must create these codes within Genesis Administrator. Let us open up Genesis Administrator and navigate to Desktop, then Action Codes under the Provisioning module. Here is where we will define our not ready ReasonCodes in their most basic configuration. Let us create 3 different ReasonCodes at this time: break, lunch, and meeting. We will create additional codes later to show with other scenarios. To create a new ReasonCode, select New from the toolbar, which will bring up the Action Code object properties. We need to provide a unique name for the object type, and the code for our ReasonCode. In our case, we will start with break as the name. We will then set the type to not ready. And we will set the code to break as well. Note the syntax of the name for the action code. It is important as this will be used later to control visibility of ReasonCodes within Workspace. Once these properties are set, we will save and close our action code, creating the object in Administrator. Keep in mind that this is the most basic configuration for a ReasonCode. We will discuss some additional settings that may be required to support a customer-specific environment later. Now that we have all our ReasonCodes defined, let us bring up the Workspace application. Because the Workspace instance we are working with was already logged in before creating the ReasonCodes in Administrator, we will not see any of the ReasonCodes we created. We must log out and back into Workspace before our ReasonCodes will be available to our user. Now that we have restarted our Workspace instance, we can see each of the not ready ReasonCodes that we created in Administrator. When selected, the user will be placed into the specific not ready reason, which Genesis Reporting Solutions can track and monitor. What if we don't want our users to see all of the ReasonCodes we've defined in Administrator? Remember that you can create as many ReasonCodes as you like. By default, all codes are displayed to all users of Workspace. To control this, we can apply options within Genesis Administrator that will limit what ReasonCodes are displayed to a user. If we find our Workspace application within Genesis Administrator, we can look up an option called Agent Status Not Ready Reasons. The easiest way to find this option is to filter using the filter capabilities of the column. So navigating to the option column, if I type in a keyword such as reason, I'll quickly navigate to my option. The value of this option is blank by default, which allows all reason codes to be displayed in Workspace. If we want to display specific configured reason codes, we can enter each reason code in a comma-separated format that we want to display for any user of this Workspace application. Keep in mind that the name of the reason code must have the same syntax as the name property within the action code object we created previously. In our case, we are going to remove the meeting reason code by entering break and lunch as the value for this option, and then save. A restart of the Workspace application is not required to support this change. If we navigate back to our Workspace application instance, we can see that the only reason codes displayed for our user are now lunch and break. This is because our Workspace instance is using the application object that we just modified, and all users using this application object will be affected by this change without having to restart. The option we just modified in the application can be applied at different object levels within Genesis Administrator. Changes at the application object level affect all users of that application, as we demonstrated in our example. This same option can be defined at an agent group object level, affecting only the users that are associated with that agent group. Or the option can be defined at an individual object user level to affect a single user. Let us show an example of this change using two different Workspace users. As you can see, both users have the same set of reason codes. Because both users authenticated with the same Workspace application, it would be expected that they would see the same information. Let us change one of our users to reflect a different set of reason codes, but still utilize the same Workspace application. We are not going to log out either user, but make a change to our user Monique so that her reason codes are different. Using Genesis Administrator, I'm going to copy the option from the application and paste this into the options of my user Monique. I am now going to change the value of the option to remove the lunch reason code and save the changes, leaving only the break reason code. Now, if we return to our Workspace instances, we can see that Monique has only the break reason code, where our second user still remains with both break and lunch. If we change the option again, adding back lunch and meeting, and then save the change, we can now see that Monique has all three break reason codes, break, lunch, meeting, where our secondary agent still has only break and lunch. This same option will also control the order of the reason codes within the status menu. As we can see in the status menu, our reason codes are listed as break, lunch, and meeting. Using Genesis Administrator, we can change the order of these reason codes by placing the reason codes in the order we want to display within the option value. As we can see, Monique's reason codes are now ordered as we defined in the option value, meeting, lunch, break. So this option will control the reason codes to display and the order in which to display them, and can be applied at different object levels within Genesis Administrator. Now that you understand how to change the user's workspace interface, let us talk about what happens behind the scenes. If we look up the event messaging generated when a user goes into a not ready state with a reason code, we will find something like these agent not ready events. Notice that the attribute reason section includes a key value pair defined as the reason code selected by the user, with both the key and the value having the same value name. These are the highlighted items. If we look at the basic action code setup we defined previously in Genesis Administrator, Workspace, by default, will use the name value defined in the action code as the key, and the code value as the value. As a best practice, it is recommended to have the key set to a consistent value when any reason code is selected. To do this, we can define an option on each action code that will set the key name to a value that we want to use. To make this change, I'm going to use the multi-update wizard to change all of my action codes at the same time. The option we need to define is called Reason Extension Key, and for our example, I will provide this option the value of reason code. This change will require a restart of the application if users were already logged into the Workspace application at time of the change. Now, after the change is applied, the reason code will be reflected in agent not ready events as shown here. Notice the highlighted items. The key is consistent for each reason code we select, but the value remains unique to the code value we defined in the action code. In some customer-specific cases, the underlying telephony switch might support using extension attributes for reason codes. It is best to consult tserver documentation to confirm if this service is available with your tserver and switch combination. If this service is available, you can set up action codes to pass data in the extensions attribute to support switch-based reason codes. To do this, we will modify options on each of our action codes to change their default behavior. By setting an option called extensions to have a value of true, this will cause reason codes to be passed under the extensions attribute section instead of the reason codes attribute section, as previously demonstrated. Using the multi-wizard, we will add extension option to all of our action codes at the same time. In most switch environments, the actual value passed to the underlying switch needs to be a numerical value. So we will change each action code to reflect the switch reason code value as set up on the telephony switch. In our case, break is going to have a value of 1. Lunch will have a value of 5. And meeting will have a value of 9. After making these changes, the agent not ready events will look more like the following. Notice the highlighted areas. The reason code KVP is placed in the extensions attribute section of the event message, with the numerical value to support the switch-based code. For more information on your specific switch, refer to your tserver deployment guide for support of this feature.